Hey, it's Tina Forsyth here. Welcome to video number 4 in the top 10 question series in regards to finding, hiring, and working with a virtual team. Question number 4 is, how do I know if someone can do what they say they do? There's a couple of things to consider when looking at this question. First and foremost is past history of the person, essentially. If somebody's coming to you and saying, I can do X for you, it could be something like designing a blog, or it could be, working as your virtual assistant, or doing some copywriting, or whatever it is. First and foremost, you really want to take a look at what is their past work experience? What are past projects that they've done? How have they worked with clients in the past before? One thing that I find people really don't do in this kind of virtual hiring world as much as they could do is actually do a reference check of sorts. It's actually talk to people who have worked with whoever it is you're considering hiring before. Depending on projects and things like that, like if somebody's working on a project for you, say it's a blog designer or a graphic designer or someone along those lines, chances are they're going to have something like a portfolio of past projects and things that you can look at, that you can actually see, right? If you're hiring somebody to do a service for you, if you're hiring a virtual assistant, if you're hiring an online business manager, if you're hiring somebody to perform a service like that, they're not going to have a portfolio per se. When I worked as an online business manager, there really wasn't any way for me to say, here's what I've done, other than to give examples and share stories. But so ultimately, what I really recommend people start to do more of is actually talk to people that the person has worked with before, and do that reference check of sorts, right? Talk to past clients, find out, how was this person to work with? Did they deliver on what they said they could deliver on? Any red flags and such, if there are any, would show up in those conversations usually. And that way too, that really gives you a good sense of what the person is capable of doing, right? But ultimately too, the other thing I want you to consider, kind of a second layer to this, if you will, is when it comes to, when somebody asks that question, how do I know if somebody can do what they say they can do? Part of that is that, as when we're looking to hire somebody, as a business owner looking to hire someone, I'm really trying to, when I'm asking a question like that, it's really about, okay, I want to guarantee as much as I possibly can that this person can do the job that I need them to do. A lot of times people are asking that question from a place of frustration, from a place of maybe having worked with a few people already that haven't been able to deliver on what it was that, that was agreed upon, and various things like that. When it comes right down to it, the fact of the matter is that you're not actually going to know what it is to work with somebody until you actually work with them. And it sounds kind of funny to say in some ways, right? That, ultimately, the true test of whether somebody can do what they say they can do is for them to actually do it for you. And this is where I really recommend people take an approach in hiring, in particular when you're looking to hire long-term people. If you're looking to hire someone like an online business manager or a virtual assistant, or anybody who's going to work with you on a long-term, ongoing basis, I really recommend taking the approach of dating before you go ahead and get married. Most people, when it comes to hiring somebody, right, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll kind of go from, I almost call this like a Vegas marriage scenario, right? It's sort of like have a conversation, do the interview process, and then boom, I'll sign up for your retainer, we're committed, and away we go. And the fact of the matter is that when that happens, you're kind of doing that 0 to 60 thing. It really is sort of like a Vegas marriage scenario. If things don't work out for some reason, it's kind of hard to get out of things when you're already in a committed stage. I should say it's harder to get out of things when you're already in a committed relationship of sorts. If you've already said, yes, I'm going to keep you on retainer for 20 hours a month, and I've paid you for your month in advance, and all this kind of stuff, there's really that expectation of commitment there. And I think this is where people will kind of run into some issues from time to time, is that they don't actually take the time or kind of work through a process of doing a bit what I like to call a dating project before committing to each other long term. So if you're looking to hire somebody long term for your team, I really recommend looking at this option. And it could be you could have a great conversation with somebody and just say, hey, how about we do a dating project or two together? Let's work on project X, see how it goes. If it goes great, then let's talk long term. Then let's talk bigger picture. Then let's talk retainers and all of that fun stuff. And just to be very clear here too, this isn't about asking someone to do a free project for you. This is something you would still pay them for, right? But I would much rather see you pay someone for, 5 hours of their time to essentially go through a trial run, if you will, to do the dating project. I'd much rather see you spend, for 5 or 10 hours of someone's time, then have a commitment, on retainer basis, and then things falling apart and the headache of back and forth and having to give, like termination notice, which could mean that you owe another month, and all of these kind of ick things that can happen, and that really, make things even more icky when relationships have to end, right? And because the fact of the matter is, it really is true, when it comes right down to it, you're not going to know what the person is capable of until you work with them. You're not going to know if they're the right fit for you until you work with them. You could talk to reference checks, you could talk to people who've worked with someone before, and they could sing that person's praises, left, right, and center. But then you working with that person, it might not work out for some reason. There could be a communication mismatch, there could be various things that come into play that, again, you're just not going to know until you're actually working together. So this is where I'm a huge fan of that dating project, right? Because then you really get to see what the person is capable of. You really get to see the person in action and have the rubber hit the road, so to speak. And then from there, and if for some reason it doesn't work out, it was like a date. It was a quick date. We gave it a try, didn't work out. Amicable parting kind of thing, rather than having to go through, a quickie Vegas marriage and a next day Vegas divorce or something along those lines, right? So that's it for question number 4. Really recommend, again, just look at reference checks. Make sure you talk to past clients, especially for longer term team members that you're looking to hire, and consider the dating project. Really consider that and work that into kind of the process, because I really think that can pay off in the long run. I'd rather see you date a few people, and then pick the one that really works for you, rather than have to go through this constant up and down of kind of like committed, not committed, committed, not committed when it comes to hiring some of your team members. So question number 5, in our next video, we're going to be talking about where to find people, how to find people, an obvious necessary step in this entire process. And I want to share with you guys some of my tips and tricks for doing so. So until next time, I'll see you then.